on whether the world has overcome and has really learned all the right lessons from the financial crisis. The jury is still out on that. And it's interesting to really, for students to appreciate whether the world has learned the right lessons and whether the same paradigms apply to emerging markets as much as they apply to more mature economies. I, for in India, have begun to realize that perhaps India has learned the wrong lessons from the global financial crisis. It has learned, for instance, the lesson that there is great virtue in continuing with excessive government regulation, and that perhaps the policy of economic liberalization, which did not do the West much good, may not do India much good. I think we need to understand that conclusions must be seen in the contextual context, and perhaps one kind of a paradigm may not fit large emerging markets like India. Anyway, and whether the global restructuring has taken place in an adequate way where the world will be spared of successive such financial crises, that's a subject on which the juries are. But it has been a privilege for me to be associated Padma for this function. When Jagdish hinted, and I said, what more and what greater pleasure there can be than to be associated with an event like this, having been taught by both of you. And as Sheilaji very rightly reminded, that Guru Dakshina cannot be a one-time episodic act. Guru Dakshina is in perpetuity. So in celebration of many more Guru Dakshinas to which I commit myself. Thank you very much, Padma, for this remark.
I think Padma writes in the book that our daughter, when she was asked, when she was little, what her mother did, and she said she went to conferences, and what did her father do? And she said he talks. So when we had a book launch in New York, the host said, "You're going to sit there but not talk." We'll monopolize the whole situation. I think since I've been asked by NK to say something, I might just pick up on a couple of themes. I think NK mentioned how, I think maybe you were exaggerating, but there was an element of truth. But since I do have a relatively affable temperament, maybe complacent, I don't know, I do remember that there was a young woman in the class who came to me and said, "I want to discuss something personal with you." So of course I froze. And then, so I said, "Why did you go to Professor Desai?" And so she goes there and she tells Padma, "Professor Bhagwati is in love with me." And so Padma said, "Why do you think so?" "He smiles at me." So Padma said, "But he smiles at everyone." But then later on, my friend Professor Chaudhary, whom we were talking about, he told me that her brother was a boxing champion. So I decided not to be so affable. So, we had a wonderful time that way. But I would simply say one thing, which is that in the end, what Padma says about, there's no way she's got to speak to for herself. And the book is readable, so you will pick out your own things from it, and that's what you ought to do. I'm sort of flattered by the things she says about me. That's been mentioned. But that's what romance and love is about. She glosses over all my shortfalls.
Don't keep holding. Don't hold.
Can you follow me?
No, don't hold it.
Yes, that's better.
Don't hold it.
No, it's fine. You're fine now.
That's better.
Don't touch it.
Yeah. So I would just say one thing, which is that essentially it involved not a commitment, but just a fair amount of, romantic involvement. You look at a picture which Nandini put on the.
Yeah, here.
Yeah? You take a look at her, as I did in those days. And then there was no turning back. She thinks it was the chicken curry she gave to me. I love good food. That's why I wanted the chicken curry to be supplied daily to me. But I think it's very, most definitely, I mean, she really impressed the hell out of people. And that certainly was something which really, I mean, there was no turning back, and I was committed to that. And all our life we were, whatever we did, sort of reflected that. So I think I don't take any credit for commitment. It was just a self-serving thing also. I mean, you know, there was no way I was going to get out of it. I loved her, and then I did whatever came with the territory. Though I think, as Soli said, holding a big thing, I mean, I'll tell you that when I said that shouldn't we have something to celebrate your 75th? And she said, you don't know how to do these things, and don't dabble in it. You know, you don't even know who are the important people in the field, and so on. So I said, yes, I don't, you know. But in the meantime, I was preparing all of this. And then when it happened, she couldn't believe it, because we had 3 days. And actually, what was interesting was that during the big one in the rotunda, which holds about 450 people, it was a great thing. And Yeltsin died the day before, unfortunately. And Gaidar and all these people took the plane anyway, because you know, he was a prime minister, and they came. And Anatoly Chubais, having heard about it, hadn't asked him, and he's still in the Putin government. He wrote an unsolicited letter, you know, a fan letter about her. So I realized she was somebody important. And then we had so it was a huge function. And one thing I do well, and I think she approves of it, if I'm going to do something, I do it with style and elegance. Or don't do anything, right? I mean, so we had a fantastic show. Last thing I would say is that our daughter, of course, has done well, and I think you would know about it because you're the daughter of an admiral, and she was in the Marine Corps, which is part of the US Navy. And it's, once I was getting an honorary degree from Chandigarh, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army was there, and I had a feeling, she was sneaking feeling, that it was sort of contemptuous of, you know, these civilians and so on. So while we were drinking, I said, you know, my daughter is in the captain in the Marine Corps. He dropped his drink. That's like saying, you know, you're state of the art. You know, there's nothing bigger and better. So I managed to derive pleasure from it. But I would simply add one thing, which is all I was going to say, but since I was asked to say some more. When I was young, my father, of course, you know, so we mentioned that, was in the Supreme Court. So I was always known as Justice Bhagwati's son. And then Prafulbhai became the Chief Justice of India, a much bigger thing. Then I was known as Justice Bhagwati's brother. Now, Anuradha has become hugely successful. I mean, you know, she's in all the major TV programs, and she's cited in the New York Times editorial, because she's working on women veterans. And that's a very big issue. So now I'm known as Anuradha Bhagwati's father. And now I'm going to be known as Padma Desai's husband. So I think I've got to go home and work a little harder.
Thank you, Jagdish. That's a speech that Padma simply has to respond to.
I'm simply overwhelmed and will always remember this evening. Thank you very much, Sheila ji, for coming here and gracing the occasion. Thank you very much, NK, for giving me such a precious Guru Dakshina, and I will always treasure it. My thanks to Soli Swarabji and Meera Sanyal for their comments, which I appreciate. To Nandini, where is Nandini, my editor, who magically edited my manuscript without changing it. And I regard her as a magician for Penguin Books to publish the book. The memoirs are a literary memoir, and the love for literature, which I got from my father, who got his degree in English literature from Cambridge University in 1927. So he brought tons of books from England, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, Dostoevsky's translation in English, and I just buried myself in these books in the vacations. There was no telephone, there was no radio, there was no TV, there was of course no computer, and all that I did was read. And so I get that love for literary writing from my father. So I think of this as a literary memoir. From my mother I got, I think, the tenacity and the perseverance to keep up with all the thick and thin, which the anguish and the loneliness, which was my life for a number of years. From my husband, glow of companionship, which I cherish, and my lovely daughter, who was born at the age of 43. She has done some crazy things in her life, like joining the United States Marine Corps, during which I had to consult with psychiatrists. And now she helps women and veterans in the US military, looks after them. And that also I regard as a great gift. I love what she is doing. The book has been referred to as very open, very frank, even honest. I like to think that if I had not lived in America, and if I had not lived in America for 50 years, I would not have written it with the openness with which I managed to do it. I find the American environment, even from my Harvard days in 1955, 59, from those days, I find the American environment totally exhilarating, energizing, and liberating. And that is what I think the book reflects. I love the openness of the American people in general and with my American friends, and I think the book reflects that also. The excerpt which finally I want to read, which I was thinking of which excerpt to read, maybe for 5-7 minutes. 2 minutes?
No, do it.
Okay. So, I'm in your charge, NK. So, the conversion to Christianity, that was a very difficult decision in the 1960s, and the Hindu Code Bill of 1955 allowed a sacramental marriage to be dissolved if a person changes religion, and provided the other party sues the person who changes the religion. But that was not to be in my case, because my ex-husband changed his mind. So I think I will read a couple of pages from that and describe the conversion which took place. I cannot recall the exact year or date of my conversion, nor the name of the village or of the pastor. I sat out in the train with Dinkar, my brother, and Mr. Ehrlich, our Christian friend, on a day that turned out to be damp, rainy, and windy. When I got off the train, I could barely hold on to my umbrella, and as I made my way through the brush and the brambles and the mud on the uneven terrain, my sandals slipping away from my feet that were beginning to get sore. The village had no roads, and I followed the two men who